Most people think selling is about the product, the features, the price, the discounts. But that's not really true. What if the most important element of the sale isn't what you're selling, but who you are while selling it? That's what this book sets out to prove. It's not about flashy pitches or the perfect script. It's about understanding that sales is fundamentally about moving people, emotionally, psychologically, and even energetically. If you can move people, you can sell anything. The best salespeople aren't always the most extroverted. They're not the ones with the slickest closing lines or the most aggressive follow-ups. They're the ones who can build trust quickly, who can connect deeply and genuinely with another human being, even under pressure. At its core, selling is about connection, and this book unpacks that like few others. We're not just talking about sales strategy. We're talking about the human equation that makes persuasion possible. Let's start with the truth most people ignore. Logic doesn't sell, emotion does. Think about your last big purchase. Maybe it was a phone, a car, a new piece of software. Did you make that decision purely based on facts? Probably not. You made the decision based on how it made you feel. Did it make you feel smarter, more secure, more successful? Salespeople who only talk features are missing the real action, the emotions driving the decision.
So, step one in mastering the human sales factor is learning to read people, their energy, their reactions, their body language. Are they leaning in, pulling away, or their arms crossed because they're cold or because they're closed off? A great salesperson learns to listen not just with their ears, but with their eyes. When someone says, "Let me think about it," do they really mean it, or are they just trying to exit the conversation? People rarely say what they mean, but they always show you if you're paying attention. Once you start seeing the human patterns, everything changes. You stop selling to scripts and you start selling to people. You don't push your way through objections, you walk around them. Because objections are rarely about the product. They're about uncertainty, fear, doubt. "It's too expensive" might mean, "I don't trust that this is worth it." "I need to talk to my partner" might mean, "You haven't convinced me yet." Reading the real message behind the words is what separates amateurs from closers. Another massive idea from the book is that selling is not about talking, it's about guiding. Great salespeople aren't pushy, they're pulley. They lead people toward the sale by asking questions, understanding problems, and clarifying what matters most to the other person. They're like a GPS for decision-making, always recalculating, adjusting, adapting to where the buyer is mentally and emotionally. The best questions are simple but powerful. What would solving this problem mean for your team? What's stopping you from making a decision right now? How will you measure success? These aren't just discovery questions, they're emotional levers. They move the buyer from thinking about your offer to thinking about their outcome. And that's the zone where persuasion lives. One of the strongest themes in this book is the idea that confidence and empathy are the two arms of influence. Confidence is the belief in your offer, the certainty that what you're offering can create value. Empathy is the ability to feel what the buyer feels, to step into their shoes, their fears, their hopes. When you sell with both, people feel it, and they trust you. Think of it this way. Confidence without empathy is arrogance. Empathy without confidence is insecurity. But when you mix both, when you truly believe and truly care, you become magnetic. That's when people lean in. That's when they stop seeing you as a salesperson and start seeing you as an advisor, someone on their side. And that's when the sale happens, almost effortlessly.
Another huge idea from the book: people don't buy for information, they buy for transformation. Your offer might be great. It might be fast, efficient, cheaper than the competition. But if it doesn't help the buyer transform something about their situation, their business, their mindset, their results, it won't land. Selling is not about explaining. It's about changing someone's state. The author talks about emotional resonance, how great sellers don't just inform, they inspire. They awaken possibility in the buyer's mind. They tell stories, paint pictures, show what's at stake. They move the buyer from, "Why should I care?" to, "What would my life look like with this?" That's not a script, that's a feeling. And great salespeople know how to create it. There's also a major focus on resistance, the natural friction that comes with every sale. It's not something to avoid, it's something to understand. When someone resists, it's not because they hate what you're offering. It's because they're scared to make the wrong move. Great sellers don't fight resistance. They absorb it, validate it, and gently redirect it. They say things like, "That makes sense," or "A lot of people feel the same way before they jump in." This isn't manipulation, it's emotional intelligence.
If you've ever wondered why some sales calls feel like a fight and others feel like a dance, this is why. The fight is about you. The dance is about them. When you align your energy with theirs, mirror their tone, match their tempo, respond to their real concerns, you create trust. And trust is the currency of all great sales. Finally, one of the most underrated parts of the human sales factor is authenticity. Not fake rapport, not robotic empathy, but realness. People can smell insincerity from a mile away, and when they do, the sale is already lost. Great salespeople don't pretend to be someone they're not. They're honest about what they can and can't deliver. They own their limitations, and that honesty builds long-term relationships. Because here's the truth no one wants to say: you can't sell everyone, and you shouldn't. The best sellers don't chase every prospect. They qualify, they respect boundaries, and they know that real success comes from alignment, not volume. You don't need 100 sales a month. You need the right sales from the right people who believe in what you're offering and trust you to deliver it.
If there's one thing this book makes crystal clear, it's this. People don't buy from companies. They buy from people. And not just any people. They buy from those they trust. Trust isn't built through technical explanations or even the quality of your product alone. It's built in small, subtle moments and how you make someone feel understood, valued, and safe throughout the conversation. To build that trust, you need to be more than a pitch machine. You need to become a skilled listener. Most salespeople talk too much. They come into a meeting ready to unload features, advantages, data, and case studies. But the buyer's attention is usually on one thing. Do you get me? Do you understand my pain? When a salesperson spends more time listening than talking, the dynamic changes. The buyer feels like they're being heard instead of sold to. Listening isn't just about being quiet. It's about actively responding to what's being said and what's not being said. It's about asking follow-up questions that dig deeper. If a potential client says, "We're having issues with efficiency," the average salesperson jumps straight into pitching how their solution can fix that. A great salesperson, however, asks, "What's been slowing you down the most?" Or, "How long has this been affecting your team?" By exploring the problem, you not only show that you care, you also gain insight into the buyer's real motivations.
This leads into a powerful idea from the book. Buyers want to feel seen, not targeted. The worst mistake a salesperson can make is treating a person like a transaction. When someone feels like they're just another name on your call sheet, their walls go up. They sense that you're there to take, not give. And once that happens, no amount of clever closing techniques will work. So how do you shift that? You start by leading with empathy. Show genuine interest in the buyer's world. Understand their business, their challenges, their wins. Comment on something specific, not just generic compliments. For example, instead of saying, "I heard your company is doing well," say, "I saw your team just launched a new platform. That must have been a massive project. How has the rollout been going?" That level of specificity creates connection. It shows you've done your homework, and it instantly separates you from the 99% of salespeople who don't bother. But empathy alone isn't enough.
You also need authority. People want to buy from someone who both understands their problems and can confidently solve them. This balance, empathy, and authority is what makes a salesperson not just liked, but trusted. When you speak, speak with certainty. Don't say, "I think this might help." Say, "Here's exactly why this solution will work for you, and here's the proof." Confidence like that is magnetic.
Another powerful takeaway from the book is that sales is never about convincing. It's about aligning. If your product or service doesn't solve a real problem for the buyer, you shouldn't push it. The best sales professionals don't waste energy trying to twist someone's arm. Instead, they identify the right people, those who will genuinely benefit, and they align their offer with that person's needs. This approach not only closes more deals, but it builds long-term relationships that lead to referrals, repeat business, and trust. The book also highlights the concept of human cues. Every person gives off subtle signals, tone, pace, energy levels that can tell you how to approach them. If someone speaks quickly and with excitement, matching that pace can help create rapport. If someone is calm, analytical, and reserved, adopting that tone can help them feel comfortable. This isn't about manipulation, it's about creating a mirror of trust. People naturally feel safer around those who match their energy because it signals understanding. And then there's storytelling. Stories are one of the most powerful tools in sales. Why? Because stories bypass logic and speak directly to emotion. A well-told story about a client who faced similar challenges and how they overcame them with your help will always resonate more than a list of technical specifications. Stories give context. They make your solution real. They give the buyer someone to identify with. Think about it. When was the last time you were moved by a spreadsheet? Probably never. But a good story, that can make someone feel the outcome before they've even made a decision. A great salesperson knows when to drop the data and when to tell a story that brings the solution to life. Lastly, the book dives into the idea of persistence without pressure. Follow-ups are crucial in sales, but there's a fine line between being consistent and being annoying. The best salespeople don't chase endlessly. They create value with every follow-up. They send insights, tips, or relevant content that helps the buyer, rather than just sending, "Hey, checking in," emails. Each interaction should leave the buyer feeling that talking to you is worth their time. At the heart of all this is one simple but profound truth. Sales is human. It's about trust, understanding, and creating win-win outcomes. When you master those elements, the techniques, the scripts, the strategies, the tactics become secondary. People buy from people, and they buy from people they like and trust.
When it comes to selling, persuasion is not about pressure, it's about alignment. The best salespeople don't convince people to want something. They uncover what the person already wants and position their product as the bridge to that desire. That shift from pushing to aligning transforms the dynamic. Imagine you're helping someone cross a river. You don't need to drag them, you simply show them the bridge. That's persuasion, showing how what you offer leads them where they already want to go. One of the most overlooked aspects of persuasion is timing. We often try to pitch too early, before trust is built. The moment someone feels you're jumping ahead of the relationship, their resistance goes up. That's why great persuaders listen first, talk second. They let the other person's language guide the conversation. If a client says, "I'm worried about cost," don't fight it, echo it. Totally fair, budget is important. Let's explore the value together and see if it lines up. That kind of response disarms defensiveness. It says, "I hear you, I respect your concerns." And once respect is established, influence can begin.
Another powerful tool in the human sales equation is vulnerability. Not weakness, but strategic openness. Sharing a mistake or an early failure builds credibility. It shows you're not perfect, you're real.
Buyers don't trust perfection. They trust people. When you say, "I used to struggle with this exact thing too," you move from being a salesperson to being a guide. You're no longer someone trying to win. You're someone trying to help. That shift in role changes everything. Objections are not rejections. They're invitations. Most objections are just signals of uncertainty, not hard no's. "It's too expensive" often means, "I don't yet see how this is worth it to me." "I need to think about it" often means, "I'm scared of making the wrong decision." When you reframe objections this way, you stop fearing them. Instead, you see them as opportunities to provide clarity, reassurance, or a better fit. A strong sales response is never defensive. It's curious. Ask, "Can I ask what part you're unsure about?" Or, "What would make this a clear yes for you?" Questions like these open doors instead of closing them. There's also a human power in silence. Most salespeople talk themselves out of deals because they don't allow space. After you ask a question, let it breathe. Silence puts pressure on the other person to process. It shows confidence. When you're not rushing to fill every moment with noise, you create a calm space where decisions can form. The most powerful sentence in sales might be, "I'll give you a moment to think about that," and then zip it. Let them work it out internally.
One major insight from the book is that confidence comes from clarity, not charisma. You don't need to be the loudest in the room. You need to be the clearest. Clear about who you help, how you help, and what happens if someone says yes. If you can explain what you do in simple, visual terms, you win. We help overwhelmed teams streamline their operations so they can scale without chaos. That's clarity. Not buzzwords, not vague outcomes, just clean, simple value. Another game-changing insight is the power of repetition. People don't remember what you said, they remember what you repeated. And they only believe what they've heard more than once. So when you have a key point, repeat it. Not in a robotic way, but in a reinforcing way. Just to recap, what this will do for you is, remember, the goal here is to make things easier for your team, not harder. Repetition isn't annoying when it's relevant. It's reassuring. It builds belief. Finally, don't underestimate the role of energy. Humans don't just buy ideas, they buy energy. When you're excited about what you do, people feel it. When you believe in your solution, people lean in. The key is authentic conviction, not hype, not fake enthusiasm, but a quiet, grounded belief that says, "This can help you." That kind of energy is contagious. And in a world flooded with options, energy is often the deciding factor.
Sales isn't just about connection, it's about conversion. And conversion doesn't happen because you force it. It happens when you guide it. The moment you've built trust, earned attention, and explored the buyer's needs, the next step is helping them make a decision. Not pressuring them, helping them. And that help comes from structure, clarity, and confidence. Think of the close not as a push, but as a natural next step in a human conversation. If the entire dialogue has been aligned and respectful, the close should feel effortless. You're not getting them to do anything. You're simply pointing to the door they already want to walk through. And you do that by asking clear, respectful questions. Would you like to move forward? Or, is there anything stopping us from getting started? These aren't pressure tactics, they're permission cues. One of the biggest blocks to closing is assumption. Salespeople assume that the buyer is ready, or they assume the buyer is still hesitant and back off too early. The truth is, you don't need to guess, you just need to ask. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you in this decision? That simple question does two things. It shows you care about their certainty, and it gives you a roadmap. If they say 7, you can ask, what would make it a 10? Now you're co-creating the close together, and that creates buy-in.
A strong close is also built on reframing risk. Most buyers hesitate because they're afraid of regret. They're scared they'll make the wrong choice. Your job isn't to dismiss that fear, it's to redirect it. What's the cost of doing nothing? Or, where will your team be in 6 months if this problem isn't solved? These aren't scare tactics, they're reality checks. People don't buy because something is perfect, they buy because the cost of staying stuck becomes higher than the risk of change. Another powerful way to lead people to action is by showing the emotional payoff. Not just the ROI, but the feeling. What will it feel like to have this handled? What will it feel like to stop worrying about this issue every day? People don't buy products, they buy peace of mind, confidence, and momentum. When you help someone visualize that emotional state, you make the decision easier. The book also emphasizes the importance of urgency without pressure. Scarcity can work, but not when it feels manipulative. Instead of saying, you have to decide now, say, here's why this matters right now. Here's what could shift if we wait. Urgency should come from relevance, not sales tactics. You're not trying to corner someone, you're trying to show them why this matters today. One strategy that works powerfully here is third-party proof. Share stories of people who were hesitant at first and what happened after they said yes. Another client had a lot of the same questions, but once we got started, they saw progress within the first 2 weeks. That kind of narrative removes isolation. It tells the buyer, you're not the only one, and this works.
But ultimately, the most important part of the close is courage. You have to be willing to ask. You have to be okay with hearing no. A no doesn't mean failure, it means clarity. And clarity always moves you forward. When you stop fearing no, your energy changes. You become calm, centered, and focused. That's the energy that people say yes to. There's one more thing the book makes clear. Follow-through matters as much as the sale. After the buyer says yes, your job isn't done, it's just beginning. Every promise you made during the sale becomes a test of trust. Keep it. Over-deliver. Make the buyer feel smart for saying yes, because how you handle post-sale will determine if they become a repeat client or just a transaction. Sales isn't a trick, it's a skill, a human skill that blends clarity, courage, empathy, and trust. When you practice these over and over, you stop chasing the close. You start attracting it.
Sales isn't just about getting someone to say yes today. It's about creating a relationship that lasts, one where you become the go-to person in their mind, even years down the line. And that shift from transaction to reputation is where the real magic of sales happens. At this level, sales becomes leadership. You're not just guiding a conversation, you're guiding decisions, outcomes, and trust. When people look to you not as a vendor, but as a partner, you've stepped into a new category. You're not replaceable, you're essential. This kind of influence is built over time, through consistency, not just in your results, but in your energy. People trust those who show up the same way every time. Calm, prepared, focused, and committed to service. They remember the ones who listen closely, speak clearly, and follow through without needing reminders. That consistency becomes your signature, and it turns one-time buyers into lifelong advocates. A key part of long-term influence is self-awareness. The most impactful salespeople know how they're coming across. They can read the room. They can adjust their tone, their pace, even their posture to meet the moment. This isn't fake, it's adaptive, and it makes the other person feel safe. When someone says it feels easy to talk to you, what they're really saying is, you're aware of me, you're in tune. That emotional resonance is rare and unforgettable. Another insight from the book is that your mindset shapes your method. If you approach sales with fear, hesitation, or neediness, it leaks into every word you say. But if you come from a mindset of abundance, of knowing your worth and your value, everything shifts. You stop chasing, you start attracting. You're no longer trying to take, you're offering something that solves a real problem. And that energy changes the entire interaction.
Sales leadership also means being honest when it's not a fit. Walking away from a bad deal builds more credibility than forcing a weak one. When you say, honestly, I don't think we're the right fit for this, You shock people in the best way. It shows integrity. And often, that very honesty brings them back to you later because they remember you told them the truth when it didn't benefit you. That's unforgettable. The book emphasizes that influence doesn't end after the sale. The follow-up, the support, the care, that's where you stand out. A quick check-in, a personal note, a helpful article that reminds them you're thinking about their business. These little touches build a relationship that isn't about closing anymore. It's about connection. And in a world of cold automation, that warmth is rare. It's powerful. As your sales relationships deepen, your role shifts from seller to strategic advisor. People ask your opinion. They trust your perspective. They want to run things by you. And when that happens, you're no longer competing. You're in your own category. You're not just part of their business, you're part of their thinking. But all of this comes down to one core truth. Sales is not something you do to someone. It's something you do for someone. And when you approach it that way, everything changes. The pressure drops. The connection deepens. The yes becomes easier, not because you pushed, but because you aligned. So if you want to master the human sales factor, remember this. Be present. Be honest. Be valuable. Speak like a real person. Listen like a trusted friend. And always, always make it about helping, not closing. That's how you become the kind of salesperson no one forgets, and the kind of human people say yes to again and again.